All right, you guys. Welcome back to the Julie Gayheart YouTube channel and the recording of episode number 168. And it's good to see all of you in the chat. I see a lot of you coming in. Hey, Alonda, what is happening? Y'all, I don't know what happened to the size of the comment that I pop on the screen, but somehow it got smaller. So I will work on that after this episode. So good to see you, Alonda. Good to see you back in the chat, Stella. It looks like we have a few of you in here this evening. So if you're in the chat, throw us a comment. Let us know you are in here. And as we go, if you all have questions, as always, throw them in the chat. And I just want to say, before we bring our guest on, I want to give you all a hint. There's a theme for this evening. There's a character right here. And I don't know what episode it was that I originally wore my Bucky's hat. But our guest tonight has experienced Bucky's. So, in honor of the great Bucky in Tennessee, and I can't remember the town that the Bucky's is in Tennessee. It's right outside of Great Smoky Mountains National Park. But we will get our guest, John Kriz's experience from his Bucky's experience. And yeah, it's quite interesting when you go to Bucky's for the first time. So we will ask him about that. We are going to talk about gear. I don't talk about gear a lot on the show, but we are going to talk about his gear, and we are going to talk about his tent choices. And I know that he has a Durston tent, but I have a feeling he has not chosen the Durston tent, and I didn't ask him what his answer was yet, so we will find out live here on the show. And we're going to find out what his plans are for continuing his section hike of the Appalachian Trail, which he has been doing for the past 7 years now, and his plans for a unique potential of a through hike in 2024. So my guest this evening for Jester Section Hiker episode number 168 is... First of all, I actually owe him an apology. So several episodes ago, I think it was when I was taking a break, I said, hey, we're going to have you on my first episode back. And I failed. So John Kriz, welcome to the show. I'm sorry I failed you, but you are here now live on Jester Section Hiker episode number 168. I'm glad to have you on, and I'm glad that we have more than one thing in common, which is section hiking the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah, Bucky.
But we have both met Bucky and have ventured into a Bucky's. So why don't we have some fun? Why don't you start off with your experience? And hey, if Bucky's wants to sponsor the Jester Section Hiker podcast, I'm in. So tell us about your experience. I don't know. I'm going to call you Kriz. Is that okay?
That is fine. Everybody calls me that. I've been called that since I was a kid. I don't know why. It just sticks, I guess. Some people put the indefinite article "the" in front of it, so sometimes I turn into the Kriz.
Okay,
And
well, you
sometimes
might be
it's a
the
verb
Kriz,
too.
or maybe a couple other names that I'm going to ask you about here in a little bit. But tell us about Bucky's and what your experience was.
So yeah, Bucky's just kind of freaked me out. We've been driving. We drive long distance to visit. My wife's family lives down in Texarkana, Texas, and Arkansas area. So it's 1,100 miles of cross country. We try and do it nonstop. It's like 18 hours, and you just hit a food, keep running, hit a gas, keep running. And this past year, we start seeing, actually last year, we saw signs for Bucky's coming, and we didn't even know what that was. This year, we're all excited. There's the Bucky's. We're like, oh, let's go into the Bucky's. And I just couldn't believe it. It was huge and phenomenal. It's like going into a mall. It has tree stands and grills and hunting stuff and knickknacks and hats and infinity food. And oh man, the bathrooms. You could
Yeah.
spend all day in there.
Yeah,
It's
days.
bad for making a long trip because what's
Yeah.
supposed to be a 6 minute stop turned into a half hour, and then you're late, and it just makes the trip longer. But
I don't
all in
know
all,
how
a
you
lot of
got
fun. I
out of there
liked it
but
every
in a
bit.
half an hour. I mean, this place, I heard it
On
described
a
as,
schedule. I'm
yeah,
on a schedule.
you're on a schedule and you have spreadsheets, which, you could tell us more about later. But somebody on another podcast I was listening described Bucky's as the state fair meets your local, gas station, maybe like a Sheetz or a QT meets Walmart.
Kind of like that. Yeah, I mean, it puts Sheets to shame. This
Yeah,
is
but
that bad. I feel bad for every other station that's like within miles of this thing.
yeah.
Total vortex. You get vortex there.
Yeah, you could do your clothes shopping, you could do your Christmas shopping, you could do your food shopping, you could get gas, and honestly, the prices aren't that bad.
Yeah, prices were good.
And it's a hiker resupply dream, even though there's nowhere. Uh,
If there were a Bucky's on the trail, that would be amazing.
that would be, I don't even know what kind of hiker experience would be had at Bucky's. I mean, people would be in the bathrooms for days after being on the trail. Can you imagine those people seeing you come in?
The bathrooms are big. You could set a hammock in there.
Yeah. So anyway, if you haven't been to a Bucky's, you need to YouTube Bucky's. They have their own YouTube channel. So look them
Ooh, I didn't
up.
know that.
Yeah, they do. Leave them a message and let them know that you want them to sponsor the Jester Section Hiker podcast, and you want them to sponsor John Kriz on the AT in 2024. Let's start a campaign. So listen, it seems odd for me to call you John Kriz. So let's walk through these names. I actually had to send you a message on Instagram to ask you what your real name was because I know your trail name is Alpha Gal, which is two separate words. And until we met the first time, I didn't actually know what Alpha Gal was. So to me, you have three names: John Kriz, your trail name, Alpha Gal, and then your YouTube name is Krizacone, which I think is where I started
Yep.
calling you Kriz. So your regular name, John Kriz, we got that under control. Now, walk us through your trail name, Alpha Gal, and how you got that.
So alpha gal is actually it's a tick-borne disease. It's otherwise known as mammalian meat allergy (MMA). And there's this tick, the Lone Star tick. It's got a really nice white dot on its backside. It's a pretty tick. Anyway, for some people,
Is there a
if
pretty
you
tick?
there is, it's a nice looking tick, um, and very distinctive. So if you get bit by this particular tick, you might have an allergic reaction, which might make you allergic to anything that came from a mammal, which includes red meat, dairy, pork, gelatin, Snickers bars, pizza, the coating on Advil. It makes you allergic to everything. And so I got bit by one of these things in Shenandoah National Park back in like 20, I don't know, 16, 17. And I knew it because when I got home, I found it on my backside and I went, wow, that's a cool tick. And I plucked it off like I've been plucking ticks off for 50 years and threw it away. No big deal. And like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months later, I, which I thought in my mind was completely separate, I end up getting this massive I turned what do you call it? Asthmatic. I had adult onset asthma, really, really bad to the point where I was considering going to the emergency room in the middle of the night because I couldn't breathe. Went to the allergist, couldn't figure it out, couldn't figure it out, couldn't figure it out. After about 6 months of messing around with that, I by chance saw a television story on this thing called alpha gal. It's like alpha galactose something 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 dot 1.3. It's a long what do you call it, carbohydrate that you get allergic to. And they showed a picture of the tick and they explained it. And I said, holy cow, I wonder if I had that. So I just out of the blue stopped eating red meat and dairy. And in like a day and a half, I was completely symptom free. And I went, holy cow, this has got to be it. So I went back to the allergist, and there was a blood test that came about. And I said, hey, do the test. Come on, do the test, please, please do the test. I finally convinced him to do the test. They called me back like 2 weeks later. Oh yeah, you have alpha gal. Don't eat meat and dairy. And I was like, ugh. So with diet and a couple inhalers that most asthma people have, for the last 7 years, I've been able to completely control it. However, I couldn't eat all the things that hikers eat. And I kind of had a pseudo vegan diet. It was vegan with a little fish and chicken around the edges. Cholesterol numbers got real good. Uh,
Wow.
and then, and then, I don't know, maybe in January this year, uh, the allergist took the blood test and said, yeah, your levels are really low. You can try and reintroduce that back into your diet. So, rather than reintroduce it slowly back into my diet, I just went and got a giant 4 meat, 7 cheese pizza kind of thing, and nothing happened. So I
Well,
was
I
like,
saw
oh,
your
this is
post on
cool.
Instagram. I was
Yeah,
like, is
I
he
started
eating that
posting. So,
pizza?
yeah, my trail name's Alpha Gal. My Instagram name's Alpha Gal. And here I am posting giant meat and cheese pizzas. And people are looking at me with seven eyes going, wait a minute. Uh, so, yeah, it took me 7 years to grow out of it. Wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's super rare, but I think it's gone. Hopefully
So,
gone
what
for
about the
good.
asthma? Is that still, do you think that's a byproduct of that?
It was
Or,
completely, yeah, that's can be one of the symptoms. Anaphylactic shock, hives, severe asthma, itching. It's that kind of stuff that the alpha gal allergy will get you with. Diarrhea, you can't eat uh, anything meat or dairy. It just disappears on you right quick.
that is crazy. I remember the first time we met. Well, we should talk about that. Our very first time we met, actually on trail
That
in
was 4th of July.
2020. Yeah, it was. It was a great day.
Yeah,
Until later that day when Wheezy P and I, I think we were doing stupidly, we were doing a 20 miler that day, and we saw you
it
about
was hot.
halfway. Yeah, it was really hot. So, yeah, so I guess I should have you maybe explain how you found the podcast, kind of how we connected.
A lot of it I blame on the YouTube algorithm and social media because once you start section hiking and you Google it and you look it up and then you do some YouTubes on that, and I also I post YouTube channels. So just in the course of doing that, I ran across your channel and it was real informative. I'm like, hey, this is kind of what I'm doing, and I associated with your viewers and kind of clicked right in and started following you and some of the people that you hike with. And at that time, I was working on the north end of Shenandoah National Park and filling in some blanks up there to get that all done. And you all were hiking in the same area. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'll shoot a short message. Maybe our paths will cross. I'll say hi. I like to do that. If somebody I'm following on YouTube or something, if they're kind of hiking where I'm hiking, I'll reach out and say, hey, I'll be in the area. Might see you, might not. If you do, I'll say hi. And yeah, we crossed paths there and had a great picnic lunch. And then I was on my way back. I think that was a Sunday. It must have been because I had to go back to work the next day, and you all kept on hiking south.
Yeah,
And
I
yeah, kept
think
in touch ever since.
Yeah, we have, and I think what Wheezy P, Maria Wishart, was there as well, and I think we were wishing that we would have turned around and went back down the hill, back to the van with you guys, with you.
It was hot.
It got really hot later that afternoon, but we did it. We survived, and I see another one of our section hiker friends on here. We've got RVA Hiker Girl. RVA, I have not talked to you
Oh
in a
yeah.
long time. I hope you are doing well. I also see Paul or Skunk Ape with the Hammock Hangers podcast. Oh, Paul, big shout out. Happy birthday. I saw that your birthday was the other day, and I failed to put whatever on Facebook. So happy birthday, delayed, Paul. So we have a little section hiker community going on back in 2020 on Instagram, on YouTube, and it's a nice little crew, don't you think?
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, I've done a couple hikes with Wheezy P, short hike with you. I meet all kinds of really cool people on the trail this way.
And
I
have you
like it a
met
lot.
RVA or Carissa?
Yep, yep, both of them.
Awesome.
We hiked. Actually, they hiked. I knew better than to do it a second time. They went through all the rocks on uh, what is it? Three Ridges Wilderness and the Priest. And I was just working through coming back from something else. So I stayed the night at one of the shelters there with them and then moved on.
Awesome. I
Yep.
love the connection with the podcasters, the YouTubers, and everybody is still out there kind of doing their thing. Um, and I think it's great. And we've got more section hikers joining. I think when I started the podcast, um, section hiking, there were people out section hiking like yourself. But I think a lot of us were still just following through hikers and not
Mm.
really connecting. So I think it's awesome. Um, More and more people are coming out, like Wheezy P. Hey, I'm section hiking. This is what I do. No intentions of through hiking, which is interesting because your story is going to take a twist. And we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But it seems like these days I rarely talk about gear on the show, but I know that, I don't know, do you label yourself as a gearhead?
I don't label myself as that, but I think anybody that knows me for any period of time will know that I fiddle with alcohol stoves and I do super light stoves and super light forks and spoons and silly things like that. So yeah, I'm kind of a gearhead. I like gear.
All right,
All
we won't
kinds of gear
label
though.
you, but we will call you a gearhead. And one of the things that intrigued me right away when I started following you on Instagram, and even when we met, is your backpack, because it is very unique. So I just call it your white backpack. I know it's way more than that. So I think we can see it in your screen here. I don't know if you can point. You got to point the opposite.
I can't point the
No,
opposite.
okay.
This
I'm
is
gonna I'm
hard.
gonna change
Oh,
the
there we
screen
go.
here. There we go. I want to make it bigger. So talk to us about that white backpack. I was trying
So
to tell you
so
which way to point again, but I'm gonna leave it
this
up to
is
you.
this is one of those things where as a kid, teenager, and Boy Scouts growing up, you go through the catalogs and you're like, oh yeah, I've got to have that pack. And it's always like a million times more expensive than your parents want to pay for it. You don't have enough money to do it. So, there's this cool high-end gear that's always in the back of your head. And then as I went through college and even after I graduated in the early 90s, Kelty made a series of backpacks called the White Cloud. And there was a White Cloud and a couple other models, and they were made out of Spectra. So it's basically uh, kind of like Kevlar, except slightly different brand naming. The thing's indestructible, and because it's synthetic, not like nylon synthetic, it's like what do you call it? It's not DCF because it's not a laminate. It's a fully woven material. It's super light, at least super light in its day. Those packs weigh about 2.5 pounds. The one I use regularly is a 3,400 cubic inch. It's like 50, I don't know, 55, 56 liters. And the other one I have is a 6,500 that I use sometimes in the winter. Um, that one's like 110 liters. You could like carry your house in the back of that thing. And they were weird, but I could find them on eBay. They were affordable, and I'm like, holy cow! My dream pack that I always wanted when I couldn't afford it is now suddenly, it's still kind of expensive. It's the price of a normal backpack still, but as an adult, I can actually get it. So I hunted and hunted and hunted on eBay. It seemed like for years before these things would pop up, and I would just scarf them up. So I got three of them now. I got a 4500, a 6500, and the 3400. All the videos I've got, I'm almost always wearing the 3400.
I was going to ask because 110 liter, unless you're like alpine hiking or winter alpine hiking, I mean, how often do you carry that thing?
Never.
Yeah.
I think that was the first one I bought because it was the first one I saw online. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to get it, and I got that one pretty cheap, and it had all its parts. In
Well,
the
I know you know
winter when
this
it's
answer.
like
How much does
super
that thing
cold,
weigh? The 110 weighs what?
I think it's 3 pounds. I think it might be less than 3 pounds. It's not that much.
Interesting. So what's the 34 weigh?
That weighs 2.2 pounds, I think. 2.2, 2.3, something like that.
So pretty much you carry the 34 whether you're day hiking, slack packing, or
Yeah.
overnighting.
Yep. It's just a big plastic bag. I throw everything in it, and it all goes down to the bottom. And I kind of know the order I put everything in. Uh, they all have brains, so I'm kind of addicted to having a brain. And that when I started thinking about trying to get lighter in my pack, kind of preparing to get slightly different gear maybe for through hike, I'm like, well, if I change my pack, I might be able to save a pound. And it's not like coming from some of the 6 pound packs and you go to a 2.5 pound pack where you're saving 3, 4 pounds. I'm looking at only saving a pound, and I'm like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
So does
I
it
look
do
at
all do they have a frame?
Yeah, it does. It's got a that the 3400 has a titanium frame. It's a single spar in the middle, held in with Velcro. It's kind of like the Hyperlight Mountain Gear, uh, the support they have in theirs. This one's just a single. The bigger packs have a pair of bendy aluminum channels in there and like a plastic frame sheet they Velcro into. So yeah, it's got a full interior frame that goes down to the waist belt, full on waist belt. You could put a Volkswagen in the back and it's still comfortable. It'll carry a lot of weight.
Well, recently on Instagram, you confused me. I actually think I saw a picture, and your wife hikes with you a lot too, which I think is awesome. You guys are out there putting in the miles together. But I saw a black backpack on you, and I was like, something's gone awry here. I don't see the white backpack. I thought it was a Durston Kakwa, but it wasn't. So, what pack did you recently purchase?
No, it was not at Trail Days this year. Z-Packs tricked me into getting an Arcall 60, and I'm forbidden from getting any more packs now. That's the last one I'm allowed to have. But that only weighed like 1.3 pounds, so I saved a whole pound by doing that, and it has all the space I need. It's super comfortable. It's super light. I've seen a lot of people through hike with those. They seem to like them. It had what do you call it? Side pockets to put water in. It has all the stuff that my current Kelty one didn't have. A stretchy back or front panel, whatever. The net thing that you put your stuff on the
Mm-hmm.
outside. And the thing that it didn't have, though, that almost none of the new packs have, some have them, is a brain. And Z-Packs had an add-on pouch. It's their multi-pack, and the thing's set up with little clips, and you can clip it on. It works just like the brain. I've been getting used to it over the last few months. I think I like it. We'll see how it goes, but I think that's going to be a keeper.
So, what about a fanny pack versus a brain? Or do you carry a fanny
I
pack
use
as
I
well?
use I use both. I use the Hyperlight Mountain Gear. I use a Versa, and I just clip it on the front of my belt. So the belt buckle I have inside the Versa pack, and in the Versa pack I keep some food, some snackage, my water filter. Actually, I use Aquamira drops, so I keep most of that in there. Some stickers and a pen, my wallet, keys to my car, that kind of stuff. Up in the brain is most of like camera equipment, batteries, bug nets, head nets, hats, that kind of stuff all goes up in there. Extra water containers, roll up bladdery things and stuff.
Yeah, that's
I
what I
use the
call it too, the roll up
I'm
bladdery thing.
a 2 liter platypus is what I use for auxiliary water, and that goes up in there.
You've been section hiking quite a while. I mean, many years, and you're getting ready to transition. But before we talk about that transition piece, talk about how you got into section hiking, and was it just casually? And because now you're aggressively section hiking, you've got almost, you just told
Yeah.
me before we went live, you've got almost half the trail done. So talk about your section hiking life, when that started, and why you are maybe aggressively section hiking now.
So yeah, I'll whip some numbers out. So I've got 1150.7 miles hiked and 1047.7 left to go. So I'm
Here we go. Wait a minute. Hang on.
52.3%.
These
So yeah,
accoutrements.
more than halfway. I'm 52% done. Now it started off. It's like a slippery slope. I live in Southern Maryland. It takes me about 2 hours, 2 hours and a little. I can get anywhere in Shenandoah National Park. I can get to most of Maryland. I can get West Virginia, and pretty far into Virginia. And it's only a couple hour drive. It's easy. So there was a giant wad of trail where I could just casually go out for a day or a weekend, or I'm waterfall hopping in Shenandoah, and it's like, oh, let me hike, from this parking lot to that parking lot. I'll pick up 2 miles of trail, and I just started tracking them on a spreadsheet, and the more I started tracking them, the more they looked like they were adding up to something. So I'm like, okay, when I go back, I'll just do something different instead of doing the same thing over and over again. And the more different trails I hiked, actually, it's all the AT, but the more different parts of it I hiked, the more I started liking it more and more. And I got, I don't know how long it took, but somewhere along the line, I felt compelled to get things done. Like I got Maryland done, and then I got West Virginia done, and Virginia took forever. That was painful. I got Pennsylvania done before I got Virginia done, and all with different section hikers and friends along the way, kind of hiking with me. It's been a lot of fun. Uh, where was I going with that? Now it's troublesome because I'm up in Connecticut and down in Tennessee. It takes me like 6 or 7 hours to get to where I've left off, and where it used to be worth it to go for a day and get a few miles. Now I do it. I still do it, but sometimes it's just not worth driving 7 hours to hike 5 miles and then drive 7 hours back. Done it a couple times because I really wanted to finish something, and that's all the time I had. But now, where I used to not use shuttles, now I do a lot of shuttling. I coordinate with people before I go to leave my car somewhere, and then I get driven to a different trailhead, and I can hike back to the car. Previously, all my hikes were in and outs. They were just little yo-yos. So maybe 25 to 30% of the trail I've already done like 2 and 3 times because it's all yo-yos.
Yeah, you're really, and I put up this comment. I think I said aggressive section hiking, and when I was aggressively section hiking, our stories sound very familiar. I always broke my hike down into a third, a third, and a third. So the first third, I was like, oh, I love it. I just want to be on the trail. And then the second third was, oh, I think I'm doing something here. These miles are starting to add up. And I will admit it publicly. I had a spreadsheet. I had multiple spreadsheets.
Oh,
Yeah, because when you're section hiking, you have to. To keep up with it. And then I started and I got really bad. So I had a spreadsheet for like the main hike, like the one section hike to complete the entire line. And then I had a sheet of, okay, I've done Georgia this many times. I've done the Smokies this many
Yep.
times. I've done, yeah. So,
Yep. Same thing.
yeah. But the last
And then I
third,
count how many nights, bag nights, how many nights I've slept on the trail.
oh, now I haven't done, that'd be an interesting statistic. So, how many nights have you slept on the trail?
I don't have that number right
Okay.
in
All
front
right.
of me,
We,
but it shocked me when I saw, like, it was either last year or the year before, I was getting numbers like 25 and 30, and I'm thinking that's a whole month that I've slept
that is a
on
whole,
the ground somewhere.
Stella's calling me out. She says, "Please, you have a whole book," which is true. Well, I have a binder. I call it. It's my 3 ring. It's my 3 ring binder. But the last third of my hike was very aggressive because I was like, I became to the point where I want to get this done. And are you to that point with your section hike because it is getting harder? So you
I,
have to be
I
more
was that way
strategic.
with Virginia. I was like that because I got frustrated. It was just taking so long to get Virginia done. And to get all the way down to Damascus, every time I drove it, it was 5 hours. So I hooked up with a couple people, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to do, 100 miles, and just start doing it. So last summer, I did a giant section. I did a lot of hostel hopping, but it was south of Angel's Rest, all of that down to Damascus. I just relentlessly kept hiking and hiking and hiking until it got done. And early on, as section hikers, we can do this. We can pick good days to hike and not hike in the rain if we don't want to. And as I started getting closer to thinking maybe I'm going to do a through hike, I said, well, okay, if we're going to do that, let's see how we like hiking in the rain. Um, I don't think anybody likes hiking in the rain, but at
No.
least I know I can tolerate it, because I'll just go out on purpose and hike in the rain,
Yeah.
get some miles done. And
And as you go now and you're planning, because you have to drive, X amount of hours north, you have to drive X amount of hours, south, because I think you still have some miles in North Carolina to complete as your
yep,
section hike. You can't predict the weather anymore. And that's part
no,
of, section hiking. So I'm trying to add up in my brain how many times I went to New Hampshire and Maine. I think it's 3 or 4. I think when I finally finished, it was 4 times to travel up north. Whether spend 2 days in a vehicle going up north, flying. I've flown up there and I've
oh
flown
wow,
home, and
not
that
done that yet.
is, that was a trip in 2015. So I flew home from Vermont, took a train, got all this stuff, and flew back and got back on the trail. And that was a mistake. So you learn, you have to factor travel in as well. Are you finding
Yep,
that? Because you're X amount of
yeah,
hours in the car.
yeah. It's so many hours in the car and then so many hours to hike. I hike at about 2 miles an hour, so I can use the Far Out app or Gut Hook or whatever they call it now. Actually, I use a lot of White Blaze Guide. I use that a lot too, just to figure out exactly how far I'm going to go and how fast I think I can do it, so I have enough time to actually get back, so I can be at work on Monday or Tuesday or whenever work happens to start. The last hike I did, I drove up to Connecticut after work, so I got off at like 5, drove 6 hours up there. It's 11 at night when I get to the trailhead, and I was clever where I picked a trailhead that was like 4/10 of a mile from a campsite, or the shelter. So I hiked in 4/10 of a mile with a headlamp, dropped the tent, and okay, I started hiking the next day on Saturday, and I pushed through and did it that way. But that took some planning to make sure I didn't end up hiking all night inadvertently in the rain.
Yeah, section hiking is definitely a different mindset, and a
And you have no
different,
trail legs.
zero
No
trail
trail legs.
legs
Every
ever.
every time you start, you're fresh.
Yeah. I don't know if that's good or bad. Um, Sometimes it's good because you feel good. Sometimes it's bad because you don't feel good. So you've got the travel. the commitment, being strategic where you're going to go. And now, because you're spreading out, you've got those northern states, you've only got that certain amount of time frame to hike in those states. But I'm interested to hear your plan going forward, because you've been out section hiking. We know you got your spreadsheets. We know that you've got 52% of the trail done. Bravo, congratulations. That is no small feat. But now in 2024, I think the plan is you want to through hike the trail. So walk us through that process. Was that your intention in the beginning? Did you always want to through hike? Did section hiking lead you to want to through hike? Where are you?
The section hiking, I think, led to the desire to do the through hike, and the I think it's more the physical challenge. Can I do it? It would be a cool accomplishment if I can pull it off. And there's something different about the community of through hikers that's interesting. I find appealing. And as a section hiker, I gel well with them, but you got to leave. If it's a week hike, you say goodbye to the tramley after a week. And I wanted a different kind of fulfillment out of the hike. I think that was more social in nature than what I have right now. And next year, late in the year, towards November, I have an opportunity where I think I'm going to be able to retire from the job I'm in. So I'll have the schedule that I don't have now, where I'll be able to actually put the time in to try and complete a through hike, or at least attempt to through hike. So in September of next year, 2024, what I'll probably do is use some of my vacation time at work before Katahdin closes. My wife and I will go up to Katahdin, up to Baxter State Park, probably book a campsite. We'll book early in the season as soon as they open. Book like three days up there or something. We'll drive up. We'll make a vacation out of it. Do all the section hiker logistics and the planning and all that, and get our butts up there, enjoy the park, summit Katahdin, and then work south along the trails that the AT takes, and get to wherever it is just outside the park, or I can bail out, get a car, and then we'll leave from that vacation or go back in the park if we have more time, and then be done. So that after I retire, sometime probably in November, like the 1st, we'll drive back up there, and I'll just get dropped off at the gate before you get into Baxter, wherever the easiest road is to drop in there. And I'm just going to start hiking south. So it's my through hike officially on paper. It'll start 2024, middle of September. September, I don't know, make up a number, 18th. I had a number, I forgot what it was. And then I'm kind of on the clock. So November, I'll start walking 100-mile wilderness, and I'm just going to keep going until the weather stops me. I'm not going to pull Aquaman, Scott Benefield. People have watched him on YouTube. He did an epic winter southbound hike, like full on snow and everything. Not planning on doing that. I'm going to, as soon as it gets a little gnarly, I'm going to bail out, and I'll spend the winter at home kind of getting ready. And then in February, I'll restart, except when I restart, I'll go back down south, all the way south, down to Georgia, and start down there, kind of with the normal northbound crowd. Probably late February, do that, and then work north. So then what I've done is as a section hiker, I've gotten a lot of Maine out of the way. As a through hiker, I've gotten a high risk area out of the way if I get like broken or something as I'm through hiking. I don't know. I mean, it's a way I'm looking at reducing risk of completing in a year. If I start in the winter, I can get that stuff done and then not worry a whole lot about it. I do intend, though, we were joking about this before the show started, when I get back up to Maine border, I do intend to keep hiking north though, and do a traditional northbound summit at Katahdin. So I'll have Maine now done twice
Yeah.
on my spreadsheet. So ideally, if this all plays out right, eventually I'll have a section hike completed over 9 years. I'll have completed the whole trail section hiking and a through hike on top of that. So that's the goal. We'll see if it pans out.
That
It's going to
is
be weird.
awesome. And Stella says, I'm going to throw it back up here again. She says, section hiker Sobo, flip flopper Nobo, you're doing it all. And I think it's
Yeah.
awesome. And one of the things that I think, well, I'm going to ask you this because this is something that I craved when I was out there as a section hiker. I always just wanted to keep going, and it was so frustrating. As soon as you got to groove, you had to get off trail, you had to get back in regular life mindset. And I always wanted to, well, I still wonder, because the most I ever spent on trail was the summer of 2015, which was 60 days. So that's the
Okay.
longest consecutively that I've been on trail. So I guess I should say that was 59 nights out on trail.
I think my max is 9. I think 9 days is my maximum.
And that was 59 nights and 1 0 day. That's what that was.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, insane. Don't do. I do. Children, I do not recommend. But I always, even those 60 days, I was like, I just want to keep going. I'm starting to feel good. I'm starting to get in a rhythm. And I don't even have to think about where my things go. I don't have to think about where things are in my tent. I can reach over in the dark. I automatically know where things are. You just get in that zone, and it always got like
Yep.
cut off. And I
Yeah, I
still,
feel the same way.
yeah,
I just want to keep going.
yeah, it's very frustrating. That's one of the things. There are, I don't know if I want to call them downsides. There are some frustrating things as a section hiker. But life gets in the way, and you can section hike long distance trails and still keep your job,
Yep.
still keep a family, and keep all your regular things going. But to me, and every through hiker has always said this, I cannot imagine section hiking the trail. I don't know how you all do it. And I'm like, I'm not sure.
We're maybe a little crazy. I don't know. It's
I
just
think so.
yeah, can't let
I
it
think
go.
so.
Can't
So
let
you've
it go.
walked
And
us
then
through.
there's weird stuff like as a section hiker, I've gone back because I use this. This is a old school. It's just a eTrex 20. So I keep all the data points of my hike and I load them up in the Garmin app, Basecamp, and I have all my track data from when I've hiked. Every now and then I'll do a road crossing on one trip and I'll go to the same road crossing on the next trip and I'll forget to walk across the road. And I'll have a 50-foot gap
No, no,
in my
no.
in my trail on my GPS snail trail and I'm like, "Oh, oh, that just eats at me. I
Yeah.
can't I
And then you
can't
go
stand it.
back,
I
don't
have to
you?
I go back.
Yeah.
Not I haven't gone back special for that, but next time I transit up that way, I make sure I stop and turn the
Yeah.
GPS on, collect those data points, and then keep rolling.
We're psycho. 6 months or so ago, maybe been 8 months, sometime in the last year, I woke up in a panic and could not remember, and I know I've done it twice, walking through Hanover, New Hampshire at the border there. I could not remember walking through the town. Right when you go from
Yep.
Vermont into New Hampshire, the beautiful bridge there. And I've done it twice where you walk over to the other side of the co op. Like I could detail everything. But I woke up in a panic and I was like, I'm going to have to go
I
back
didn't I
tomorrow.
didn't do it. I didn't do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is insane. You know what, though? You've taken it to a whole new level with your Garmin and all the points. Yeah.
That that's been interesting. I use that. I also campsites that I like. I tag them. Water sources that are not in Far Out app. I tag those. I tag a lot of data, and just for transparency, the White Blaze Pages guide. I'm a collaborator, loose collaborator with Rick Towley. He's the guy that runs the White Blaze website. He's the author of that manual. I give all my data to him so he can help update his guide, keep the center line and the miles up to date, and add campsites and water sources and things like that. So that's been fun too as a contributor.
I love it. I love it. And you know what? You're going to have to come back on the show again, and I promise um, that I will follow through on that because I want to talk to you again before you go. Um,
Oh, sure.
yeah. And maybe we'll talk. So follow you, talk to you right before you start. And maybe when the weather, you can no longer hike because you don't want to be Aquaman. And by the way, if you all have not gone on Aquaman's YouTube channel and watched his southbound through hike in the snow, I mean, Maine, when he went through Maine and New Hampshire, that was ridiculous. I mean, I don't know how he did
Yeah.
it. He had youth on his side, I think, and determination and grit for sure.
He
But
was
before,
laughing and smiling the whole way.
I know, insane, insane. So we're going to talk to you then, and maybe when the weather stops you before you head back out in February, we'll catch back up with you if you're willing to come on, because I think it would be awesome to hear your comparisons from what you're
Absolutely. Yep.
used to as a section hiker and what you get into as a through hiker. But before we end the show this evening, as always, I could make an hour go by real fast. Talk about your YouTube channel because you post a lot of your hikes. It's Kriz on YouTube. You guys go over, follow Kriz. Are you going to vlog? What's the deal with your YouTube channel?
I
Are you going to
I
put
do.
stuff out there?
I plan to do. I'm going to say a daily update. I'll put that on the YouTube channel, Krizakoni, Krizakoni. And I also do a lot of posts on Instagram. So between the Instagram, which is Alpha Gal Hikes, and the YouTube channel, um, for sure on the Instagram there'll be daily updates all the time. I'm always flipping pictures up there. But the goal is to keep nice, short, concise updates on the video side. Probably like a 7-minute format kind of thing. Half hour a day gets to be too long for a daily video. And a lot of the trail I've done as section hikes. All my section hikes are also up there uploaded on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I generally show the parking, the water sources, the shelters. I look at a privy or two. Kind of, I do privy reviews. That's a fun thing I put in the video.
They're
And
funny.
yeah, four star privy. And there's a mix there, and I got some car repair videos and stuff in there too, just to keep the metrics up. They get more volume than hiking videos for some reason. And yeah, I'll just start pushing them as connectivity allows me to get them up. But the intent's to do something daily. I tried when I did Georgia a couple of years ago. I did Georgia end to end, and those I pushed out like daily, every other day. I practiced editing on the trail, putting it together, and uploading, and I was reasonably successful at doing that. So I think I can pull it off.
So, what is your camera gear?
I use an iPhone. iPhone right now. I got a 13 mini. It seems to suit me well. The camera's good enough. Stabilization is really nice. I get a full day out of the battery. I carry a auxiliary charger to pump it back up. As a section hiker, I only have to make it last a few days, and it seems to work okay. More than enough for the kind of stuff that most people are doing.
So, for your auxiliary, are you carrying like a 10,000 milliamp or what are you?
I use it's an Anchor. It's a few years old. It's a 13. I think it's a 13,000.
Okay.
I got a 13,000. I have a 20,000 that I never carry because it's too big.
Oh, the thing's heavy.
And
That thing's over a pound.
Yeah, and then I got one of those super whiz cool ultralight. What's that carbon fiber stupid light 10,000 milliamp one? I can't remember what it is right now.
Oh, is
And
that a
it's just okay. Who makes the headlamp? It's the same company that
it's a
makes the light.
Nucor. Is it
Yeah, that
Nucor?
thing.
Yeah.
New something.
New
Yeah.
something. NU. Look it up,
Yeah.
people. NU. So this is
Night
I
Court.
just happen
Oh,
to
I'm
have
embarrassed.
this in
Yeah.
my desk. This is the 20,000 Anchor. I think you have that one. External battery. And this thing is it's just over a pound. I carried this on the my whole 3 days on the John Muir Trail, my sad attempt at the John Muir Trail, and I was about to throw this in the river. I was like, there is no way. I mean that was a bad decision. A pound?
It's a lot of weight, and it takes forever to charge. That's
Yeah.
the thing I don't like about the bigger ones. I'd rather have a handful of small ones and just charge them all at once fast. I think the newer ones do charge faster though.
I agree. It's a night core. NU.
Yeah, night core. That's it.
Yeah, night core. Where did I get
I have
NU? Okay, who knows?
that's the NU25 is the headlamp.
That's why I don't talk about
Yeah.
gear because I don't know the names of any of it. I just know what works for me. So I'm excited for you. I think it's going to be a fantastic time, especially the way you're doing it as well. You might have some of the trail alone as you head south
Yep.
up in Maine, which is incredible. You're going Maine. You're gonna. I mean, I love Maine so much. My dad was on here. He and I did about 10 days together in Maine, and it was awesome. My dad rode me across the Kennebec.
Oh, cool.
So that was a great. I don't think my dad
That's
understood how
awesome.
much of a moment that was when we got to the Kennebec. I was like, "We're at the Kennebec." My dad was like, "Get in the canoe." So you're going to have a fantastic time. I'm glad we finally got you on the show. If you guys want to go
Yeah,
over
this is fun.
and say that again,
This was fun. I'm glad I'm
yeah,
here.
please come back on. And I can make an hour go by real quick. So
Yeah, it does go by fast.
hang on, don't go anywhere. I'm going to flip the screen here and end the show. Once again, you guys, John Kriz, aka Alpha Gal, on YouTube. He is Krizaconi. If you check the description of this YouTube, of this live, all of his information is in the description. Go over, follow him on Instagram. Go over, check out his YouTubes. Another section hiker getting ready to have a unique finish, not only with fingers crossed, a through hike and finishing a section hike almost simultaneously, putting in the work, getting it done. And I think we have a new term, aggressively section hiking. That's what I'm going to say from now on. So as always, everybody, really appreciate you joining the live recording. This was episode number 168 of the Jester Section Hiker podcast. Thanks for listening. Be safe out there. And until next time, happy section hiking.